Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to FPE Studios today at PAC Expo Connects. My name is Emily Napolitan, and I'm going to be the host for today's session on top trends in food plant design. I'm also a process engineer with food plant engineering, and today we have Shannon Standish with us, who is our lead architect on our team.
Good afternoon.
The trends that we're going to be talking about today have been a result of the outcomes of some of the regulations with FSMA, as well as guidance from USDA, and some of the outcomes we've noticed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I just want to let you guys know that there should be a chat function on the side of the screen, so if you have any questions, we are going to try to reserve time at the end to answer any of those that you have throughout our presentation. So today we're going to be talking about three core trends. First being increasing food safety in existing food plants, the second being flexible automation, and the third being ventilation, segregation, and upgrades. So to kick it off, our first trend about increasing food safety in existing facilities is really a result of the FSMA regulations that have come about. They have increased sanitation requirements and as well as other design considerations. And so, Shannon, can you tell us a little bit about space design in existing facilities?
Sure. In existing facilities, typically your existing plant started out as a small plant and it's grown organically over time. So you have a bunch of small, tight spaces, not necessarily current materials, and not necessarily proper zoning. So, typically what we see is you need to renovate to increase the size of spaces, to better segregate, raw from ready to eat, allergens from non-allergens, packaging from, the production spaces, things like that. You need to upgrade finishes a lot of times to have more cleanable, durable, wash down finishes. And typically you can do that. I mean, there's a challenge with an existing facility that, you have to take the existing line offline to do a lot of the renovation. You have to do a lot of scheduling and phasing, but it's all doable. You also end up with, when you're renovating an existing facility, contaminants become an issue. You're bringing up construction debris. You might be, bringing up listeria that's dormant in soil that's under your slab. So you definitely have to segregate the space, partition it off where you're doing the work, and then phase things so that you can keep things in operation. And then, typically we see, spaces getting enlarged because everything needs to be more flexible now. And then also upgrades to finishes, changing out wall types or putting a floor topping on or adding a ceiling. I mean, a ceiling is usually a lot of what we get asked. Do I need a ceiling? Should I put a ceiling in? What's the return on investment for putting a ceiling in? And we found that having a ceiling can save you a lot in just labor and downtime for cleanability. I mean, if you're, say, a bakery and you have a lot of flour dust, you don't clean it that often, but when you do clean it, you got to take the whole line out of production. You got to get a lift in there. You got to get somebody up there to wipe every single bar joist down, and it takes a lot of time and effort. You put a ceiling up there, you maybe don't have to be down as long. You wipe it off with, a mop kind of thing with a wipe on the end, and you can do it from the floor maybe, and you're not down as long. So return on investment is labor and time, that you're not out of production. So those are, a few of the things we've seen.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a great opportunity to go into your facility and kind of reevaluate your hygienic zones, as well as identifying new potential hazards and risk-based control points, and maybe mitigating some of those issues that may be a problem in your facility at that time. Now, one question I kind of came to mind is, are there different nuances between, maybe your hygienic zones and the level of renovation that needs to occur inside the plant?
Yeah, definitely depending on what kind of industry you are. I mean, a meat processing facility typically has more sanitation requirements, so you might have to upgrade your finishes to, a lot more non-porous, easily cleanable, finishes. A bakery, you don't wet clean as much. So, you don't necessarily need something that's wash down capable, but you still need something that's wipe down capable. So there is a level, just depending on which type of, product you're making.
Yeah, so your level of investment up front, especially in these wash down areas, is probably going to be more, but also very beneficial because you're going to save a lot of time in cleaning, right. Yeah. Which will then allow you to make more product over time. So the next kind of topic we're going to transition to is, Shannon kind of mentioned in the last segment, was our last trend, is about flexible automation. So I think traditionally plants have been built up around very linear automation. You have equipment lines that were put into place that were meant to make the same thing over and over and over again. There was not a lot of flexibility and transitions between maybe packaging and the different products. So right now, with a lot of increasing consumer demands, and with as a result of the pandemic,
COVID, you're switching from I'm a food service manufacturer and now I've got to figure out how to package stuff for retail because food service is not necessarily your market at the moment.
Yes, there's lots of questions about how to increase your flexibility through what we would call targeted automation. So that's maybe going through your facility and reducing repetitive tasks that employees might be completing to help maybe free up that labor or free up the space for social distancing throughout your facility. We're also evaluating what kinds of equipment can be maybe rolled in and out of place for different packaging transitions. So there's definitely lots of opportunities in our end-of-line automation, and then trying to evaluate, maybe what are different kinds of fillers and different placement of pieces of equipment that will help, like I said, reduce repetitive activities and, maybe be able to produce different products to then put on the market.
Right, but with that flexibility, you do need more space too, though. If you've got a packaging machine that you roll in for this and then you roll it out for somewhere else, you have to put it somewhere. So, we see a lot more of, we need more flexible space in a design so that there's somewhere to store those items.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think another interesting piece of technology that we're kind of exploring the opportunities for in food manufacturing is through cobots or collaborative robots. These have definitely been used across different sectors, including like automotive and a lot of mechanical machinery type operations. But collaborative robots are designed to work with individuals on your production line. So they're easily programmable, and you can utilize them to show them the motion, and that's kind of how you're programming. You don't need to hire full-time coders behind the scenes writing complicated code to load into the robot, and it can save multiple programs at once. So you can have your robot next to you, maybe you're placing something from A to B, and then later on you need it to move it to a different line to help someone place an item from C to D. So they're supposed to be movable, easily programmable, help reduce repetitive motion, and can ultimately, we're hoping, help create some of the social distance we need as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the last kind of topic or trend that we've seen and we've had lots of questions about is about ventilation segregation and improvements. So part of this is a result of the FSMA regulation. FSMA talks a lot about allergen control and management. And so one way that, as we evaluate facilities and plan for the future, we want to create more cellular air systems throughout the plants. Yeah, zones. It's very similar to what we've seen in pharmaceutical companies throughout the past. And so these kind of cellular air air systems, circulate the air in one room without mixing the air from neighboring areas of the plant. So this will help isolate allergens. Maybe you have peanut production in one room and you have, your soy and wheat production in another room, using, positive pressure segregation, making sure that we can separate the air in the room so it doesn't mix and cause potential contamination over time.
Right, and we do the same thing with a ready-to-eat area versus a raw area. You keep the air segregated, and you keep, usually there's a physical divide between there too, but the air can't go between the two areas. Otherwise, you'd have contamination possibly of E. coli or, salmonella or something across to something that's already cooked. So we're just expounding upon the same principles that we've been using for a while, but now we're using it for allergens, and we're going to be using it for COVID.
Yeah, yeah, I was saying, so that's, perfect, because that's kind of the other area that we're getting a lot of questions around our air supply systems. So when we're looking at COVID, we're trying to evaluate, what levels of filtration are necessary and what are the appropriate outside air changes that we can bring into a facility in order to ensure that our employees are safe and healthy. There's also some new emerging technologies around, UV radiation and ionization technologies to help kind of purify the air that's already in the building. So those are also interesting applications to kind of evaluate.
You use them to supplement something else, probably.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So at this time, we're opening up the room to questions. And so it looks like we have 2 to start with.
How difficult is it to update ventilation systems in existing facilities?
So the question, to repeat that, how difficult is it to update existing ventilation systems? So with that, there's a lot of it depends, because you got to first start by evaluating what the system can already handle.
What's your capacity? What's your horsepower?
Exactly. In addition, what are the temperatures in your spaces? Each system is very uniquely designed. Now, if there is extra surge capacity already in your facility, you might be able to look at adding increased filtration already. If not, unfortunately, I think most times you got to then look at adding new equipment to your facility to make those changes.
Right, maybe reuse what you've got for a particular zone and add a new piece for another zone so that you can get some of that separation.
Correct, yes. Yes.
Can cobots be used in the processing environment where washdown is occurring?
So the second question was, can cobots be used in a processing environment where washdown occurs? From what we understand, right now it is not totally feasible. I know a lot of the companies are researching different technologies. Some of them have, like houses for the cobots. Some of them have kind of jackets that can protect it also from temperature in addition to moisture, but they're not 100% washdown capable. And I think another interesting kind of challenge with the cobots is right now a lot of the lubricants that they're using aren't food safe. So I know there's a lot of different companies out there working on making these changes to help more effectively incorporate cobots into the working environment. But right now, I don't believe that there are any that are 100% washdown.
So right now you'd use them more in a packaging condition, probably.
Correct.
Where you're not food contact.
Yes, there's lots of large food companies that have already deployed units of these in their secondary packaging areas to help complete tasks like casing, and they even have some cobots that are like mobile palletizing units that you can wheel to different areas of the plant to help stack different cases and different orientations to build your pallet. Do we have any other questions for now? If anything comes to mind for anyone, feel free to reach out to us. We will be available via chat on the PAC Expo website. It also has our email contacts on there. So thank you for taking 15 minutes of your day to spend some time with us and learn more about the top trends in food plant design.